listening to Bears Beyond the Gate, a Bristol Bears podcast made by fans for fans. We're three regulars at Ashton Gate who love the club, the game and all things Bears. So, a week after revelling in a record-breaking victory at Welford Road and then surfing a festive hype wave that even saw Pat make an appearance on Radio 4, we came crashing back down to earth with a smothering defeat to the Masters of the Dark Arts, Sale. Is it just a blip or something more fundamental? We pull in some heavyweight punditry to help us make sense of it all, as well as get regular contributions from listeners. Win or lose, the Bards deliver. Saracens are up next, and given that they were humped by Bath at the weekend, even more roughly than we were, it will still be nothing less than a horrendously tough assignment at the Stonex. With a mounting injury list, the plastic pitch and a generally terrible record in North London, can we pull something miraculous out of the fire? All this and more. I'm Pete and I'm joined by Lee for a cheeky beer and a bit of rugby banter. Well, I mean, I know it was a bad night on Friday, but I mean, I don't know where Miles has gone. He's gone at MIA.
I reckon he's gone and had laser eye surgery after that performance on was it Friday night? Yeah, it was Friday night.
Yeah, it does feel like it was a long time ago.
Yeah, he's had the eyes burned, and I think he's going into a period of recuperation for the week.
Yeah, although I must admit, the last time I saw him on Friday night, he was heading towards the North Street shawarma, and maybe he's not reappeared from there yet. He's been co-opted to work there because obviously Bristol City today, so it's been a busy night for them. So maybe Miles couldn't pay his bills. Yeah, but anyway, so Miles is not with us. I mean, people could speculate that there's been he's been called to the House of Lords for an emergency debate on the state of rugby, or maybe he's just got man flu. Who knows? But we're going to have to.
I think all the listeners know that man flu is probably at the top of that list.
I think so. Well, look, clearly it was a very chastening night on Friday. Everybody was there or watched it on telly. Doesn't need to be told that. I mean, the fact that it was yet again in front of a kind of massive festive crowd of probably a lot of first timers, a lot of families, a lot of kind of part-time watchers, no doubt had kind of been sort of sucked into the narrative of rightly so, of the Bears scoring loads of tries. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of ironic that it went like it went. And, I mean, nightmare for the marketing men as well, because they were advertising half-season tickets and the big day out, and you would have thought that a resounding victory on Friday would have added a few more ticket sales to the coffers.
And it was a little bit, like Groundhog Day, wasn't it, for the season? Because it does feel like we get these big crowds at Ashton Gate, and I don't know the stats. I think Miles might have done some stats for us.
Even though he's not here, I did give him a bit of homework for this, and I did ask him to find out what our festive record is, because I kind of feel it's always really, really bad. Yeah. And anyway, here we go. He said, here we go. So Miles got back to me. Fair play to him. Obviously, just before he was on his deathbed, and he said, so. We've obviously had a few away ones. So basically, we've only had one festive win at home in the last 4 home games. And we've won 2, lost 2 away since December 2018. And both those games we won were against Quins. Mm. So basically, and interestingly, he said last Christmas, we were the only team to not win at home in the festive period. And I mean, it was almost the same. This year, apart from Quins, he drew with Leicester.
Oh, that's right.
The big game. Yeah. So obviously last year was the horrendous Exeter game as well, the Chiefs second half. It's just one of those things. I mean, I do wonder whether it's just the luck of who we get, because if you get a kind of spoiling sort of team like Chiefs were last year and a bit like Sale were this year, you're always running the risk of what happened. And if you get a kind of slightly more open team, then at least there's going to be the chance of a bit of running rugby. So
what are we blaming the fixture?
Yeah, 100%. I'm blaming whoever does the fixture. They've got it in for us. It's like that. I reckon they do. They let's just give a gnarly team to.
The point in question is, like, we know people that have gone down for they've taken their children down. Well, you took your family down, Pete, didn't you? Yeah. And Miles, and it's just very, very frustrating when you want to get these people coming back, for the next fixture and kind of get that love for the game, and it's so frustrating. And that Sale game, I know we're going to talk about it in a bit, but that was more frustrating than Chiefs last year, and that was really saying something for me. I thought this one was a lot worse.
No, I agree. And of course, it reminds everybody, both kind of as fans, but also commercially, that sport is a different sort of product to just kind of producing a load of widgets in a factory. You cannot always control the product. Yeah. And of course, results and winning is always very, very useful. But it does remind us that we've just got to be so careful. And anyway,
we're going to try and stay positive because we've talked through a lot of positives, haven't we? So,
and I think the thing we've got to remember is that this was clearly it was a very bad night. It was to coin a cliche. Hey, I remembered it.
Numero uno.
To coin a cliche, it was a pretty bad day in the office. We've kind of said this in the past. I don't think we even got to the office, did we? I mean, we got to the barrier and realised that we couldn't remember, we'd forgotten the pass to get the barrier up.
Yeah.
So it was a nothing day at the office more than anything. But I think we've got to look at it on two levels. We've got to look at it at the game itself, which obviously we can talk about. But I think we also maybe have to look at it in the bigger picture, the wider context, and kind of think about where this sits with what up to this point has been an absolutely fantastic season.
Yeah.
You'll notice that I have remembered the cliche bell this week, but I was wondering whether we might have to turn it into the old swear button instead. But luckily Mars isn't here, so perhaps it will be cleaner tonight without him.
Let's try and keep it clean, eh?
But I also thought that in order to kind of get us going on being able to analyse the game, I thought I tried to pull in, or I managed to pull in some heavyweight punditry.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, let's get somebody who's been there, who is much closer to the actual game than we are, who was watching it on Friday night, and see what his thoughts were on the game.
Yeah.
So,
which is great, because having a player perspective is obviously so much different to what we see in the stands looking down.
Absolutely.
And then I thought that was a great shout, actually.
So you might have guessed who we've got already, but it's a friend of the pod and Apero Bar Supremo, Dave Attwood, agreed to give us a little bit of a summary of what he thought about the game. So what I think we should do, Lee, is let's listen to what Dave said, and then we can sort of pick up some of the themes after that and take it from there.
Let's do it.
So, in order to help us make sense of what happened on Friday, we are delighted to be joined by ex-Bristol, Bath, Gloucester, Toulon and England rugby player and now Apero Bar Supremo, amongst other things, Mr Dave Attwood, who is going to provide us with a bit of heavyweight punditry. So, Dave, thanks for coming back onto Bears Beyond the Gate for your second appearance.
It's number two. Very happy to be here, Pete. Thanks for inviting me back.
Actually, you've been quite busy because obviously you were down the gate on Friday, and of course I think you were down the Rec.
Yeah. So I was at the at Ashton Gate. I fortunately had a couple of good staff members with me working at the Bristol game, so I actually unusually got a chance to get in and properly watch the game live, which is strange for me. Normally, I'm out busy myself with the bar. So and the same at the Bath game. I got to go down and watch another drubbing.
Yeah.
Go on over there, which we'll probably get onto in a minute.
I imagine they were swigging your hot toddies after the game.
Yes, sales went well today. The home team dominating very comprehensively. It was very noticeable. Still, I mean, decent turnout. The obviously the festive spirit rife in Bristol down at Ashton Gate, but unfortunately just not on the pitch.
I've got three questions to ask you. So first question was, what are your general thoughts on the game? And in particular, I mean, what could you identify that Sale did specifically to essentially dismantle the Bristol game plan?
Well, there's two big things. One is Sale brought a lot of line speed. So they're obviously, they're title contenders. They're top four. They're playing pretty well. They beat Exeter last weekend. They're in pretty good form. But they came with a lot of physicality and line speed, which you really expect the physicality from Sale, but it did feel quite noticeable of that kind of umbrella shape, the outside of the line really working hard to press forward. And Bristol really didn't have the option. I don't know whether they identified the young kiddie at 10, and thought, well, maybe there's an opportunity if it's not quite as slick as it is with AJ, who's obviously got that really effective feint at the line. He can put a bit of pressure on you and kind of check that line speed. With AJ not playing, maybe there was a conscious effort, obviously under Pat Sanderson, to really bring that kind of old school Saracens-esque line speed up and force the skill execution of Bristol, who were unfortunately found wanting. They couldn't get the ball out wide enough. A couple of times you saw the ball get out to Van Rensburg, who last week was able to push those hard flat passes and get outside Leicester. Obviously just not able to do that. Too much pressure and not enough width, and failed to kind of get outside and punish Sale for throwing that line speed at them. And the other kind of point here is Bristol lacked, certainly in the first half, they lacked a bit of penetration. They weren't direct enough, they weren't confrontational enough, and they weren't deceptive enough. I think that was the big thing. The number of times I was getting frustrated watching with the people either side of me, that it was so dull, so simple, and playing into Sale's hand. As someone who specialised in defensive operations, for me, the best way that a team could attack against me is 9 pass to a first receiver who just carries it. And Sale absolutely melted that first receiver. I mean, you saw Big Bill and Fitzharden get like filled in and upended a few times. Even the kind of ball carriers who you would traditionally expect to get over the gain line, get the hands free, absolutely nowhere near it. And then you saw Bristol starting to chase the game. Obviously, in the second half, they certainly hadn't earned the right to be throwing the out-the-back passes and trying to get round width. And you saw Ben Curry pick off that intercept on the line to dot down. And really, that was just Bristol forcing patterns without having earned the right. And really, that's the lesson.
What could they have done? Was there anything Bristol could have done? I mean, if you'd been, you were there in that Harlequin semi-final when it all started to go pear-shaped. I mean, was there anything they could have done to try and change the
It was very difficult. Really, you needed a bit more of a push around the 9 and that kind of forward into play. I think under Pat, a few years ago, you remember all of the interplay that used to happen in that first pod of 3 forwards coming off the 9. People like John Afoe and Stevie and Chris Fouey, little slip passes and a shift out the back, and 9 putting it between 2 players to the third forward. All of those kind of was. I remember playing against Bristol the season before I joined, and we spent the entire week preparation just learning to defend against those pods of 3 and how they interplayed. And Bristol have kind of lost a little bit of that. They don't really push those pods of 3 playing with the ball, and that allows defences to come up and bang you. And unfortunately, when you've got an inexperienced 10 and you haven't really got any ball players outside that, obviously Jimmy Williams coming back in after a pretty decent spell out, and even then forced to come in at 10, it's not really where he wants to be playing. There wasn't really the direction to kind of take the pressure off of that. And especially when Harry got yellow carded, that was a crippling moment in that first half, because there was a minute there where you felt like Bristol was starting to wrestle themselves back in, get a bit of the confidence up. And it's one thing, the club having momentum, but now we're talking down with a microscope of team momentum on the day, and Bristol hadn't earned any momentum at all. And therefore you saw drop passes from people who you haven't seen a drop ball all season. And they're busy looking up for how can we attack before they've caught the ball, and suddenly there's a drop ball in midfield. And then obviously Sale were very much on top at scrum time, and that just compounded the issue. So I think, unfortunately, on the day, I'm not really sure there was a great deal that Bristol could have done to wrestle momentum back. It was unfortunately one of those things, once it started to go, we were kind of creaking all the way. And I think it's unfortunate. The only thing we maybe could have done is put a little bit more boot to ball, try to push Sale behind, and then get them running from deep, and get them maybe a few defensive sets to kind of get ourselves back in the game, because we didn't look too bad once we were kind of moving defensively. But certainly in the first half, Sale's ball carriers was all forward. They were smashing breakdowns and melting us, which meant that the ball carriers, one out pass is fine because they've smashed the breakdown so much. That momentum breeds more momentum. and you're chasing your tail the whole time. So unfortunately, the way the game started, I don't really see that there was an awful lot Bristol could have done to kind of shift momentum back, especially with the number of drop balls and penalties that we were giving away.
I mean, when Sale obviously quite quickly must have known that they were on top. I mean, you know these guys. Would there have been a bit of chat in there as well? Would they have been doubling down a little bit with kind of getting under people's skin, or do you
a little bit? I know from experience. Obviously, the Dupree boys, they're very quick to kind of rest, and you saw a little bit of aggro, and unfortunately, Bristol's response to that was looking at the referee. And there were a number of instances where we didn't really get the rub of the green. I thought there were a couple of clear outs on Harry Thacker, who was legitimately just being a nuisance around the ruck, and one of the Dupree boys didn't come back in from behind the gate. He basically came in from the side and clocked him, and he didn't whack him around the face. There was no illegality about the challenge. It was more just, did he come back through the gate? Now, it didn't change things, but potentially a penalty there gives us an opportunity to wrestle a bit of momentum. We had plenty of those. We had a number of penalties and opportunities getting into the corner, and then unfortunately the line-out didn't deliver. Yeah. A drop ball, a disruption, crossing at the line-out, and that's the killer. The number of times I've been involved in games where you're desperately trying to find a foothold, you finally get a line-out, the line-out's going well, and then somebody steps in behind the jumper, easy penalty, and then you've lost all of that hard work, all that momentum. And it's so unbelievably difficult to get your head back up and then you miss a kick to touch, it goes dead, and you're looking at the game thinking we're not going to win this. And as soon as you've got that thought, you lost the game.
I was just actually thinking about penalties. You know, when Jack Bates made that break, I mean, really good break, and then kicked through, and then one of the Currys.
Yeah, Ben Curry kind of shoulder to shoulder and just mustered him out the way.
But then they got penalised for, killing the ball essentially. Yeah. I was surprised that they didn't get a yellow on that. It just seemed, would the ref have deemed we weren't quite close enough to the line for that?
Well, I think that would have been in his mind. I think that was when Harry got himself scuppered, wasn't it?
Yeah,
we couldn't see on the big screen. They didn't show a really replay, and I couldn't really make out. There was one of my tasks is watch the game back, because incidents like that. Unfortunately, one of the things I will say about Ashton Gate is they're really not very good with replays and explaining to a neutral fan going on. Like, if you know what the referee's decisions are, what the hand signal's been, that's one thing. But if you don't know, there was an awful lot that went on in that game. Whereas a fan, you're like, I don't know what, and you're trying to watch the big screen for a replay, and it never comes, or it gets cut short, or they show something else, and it's like there's plenty of opportunity to bring the fans into the game here and see what's going on, expand the viewership, and unfortunately, a real missed trick. I thought it was.
Well, it's interesting actually.
Experience to me.
Actually, that as an aside, what they did in the autumn internationals, wasn't it, with the refs getting on the whole stadium mic to explain things, had a massive.
I thought that was good. And then for a while, they had, on the replay, they'd show the referee's signal, a clear, this is what's going on, or scrum down, and then they would explain underneath it, say, scrum down, opposition ball. Then they might show a replay as to what was going on. And it's almost like you're coaching the fans along the way.
Yeah, yeah.
You subdue and suppress a lot of the ill will that people get from not knowing what went on.
Exactly.
And I think there's the big screens at Ashton Gate. I'm going to say maybe a third of them is covered in advertising, which I get. Like, we're trying to generate a business, make money, and if people pay for it, that's one thing. But you've got all this space, and unfortunately, it's very frustrating watching the screen because you don't get to see anything that would be useful. It's almost the guy who's choosing what camera angles to choose is not a rugby person and doesn't understand the rugby at all, and is more just looking, oh, that was quite a nice shot there, and that's quite nice, and it's aesthetic.
Sounds like you're applying for a job there, Dave. You could.
Well, if they pay me to do it, I'd quite happily step in and fix it.
Yeah, I think. Well, maybe. I mean, everything's up for grabs in rugby at the moment, isn't it?
I certainly think that's something that would be really valuable.
Yeah, no, I like it.
It's such an amazing facility, Ashton Gate. They're so blessed to have that as a rugby facility. It is absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
and it seems such a shame for something that, on the face of it, should be quite simple to deliver really, really well.
Yeah,
fudge that up.
Especially when you think last night, on Friday night, there were a lot of kind of one-off fans there, and there were lots of
particularly
families.
the Christmas games.
I know.
Everyone's home for Christmas. Oh, we'll go and see the Bristol game. That'll be fun. They're top of the league at the minute. They're going really well. A big Bristol win. 30,000 fans all cheering, being drunk, having a good time. Fans at rugby are really good value. They're always good fun. Yeah, what a great thing to do.
Right. Okay, so taking all that into account, I mean, you've been there. How are the boys going to pick themselves up this week? I mean, they've got Saracens away. Ironically, it's probably been made harder, that game, after what happened to Saracens today, because they're not going to want to. It's going to be. I've called
Saracens are going to come back with a bit of bite. You know that the pedigree says that. Humping today is going to mean a savage week for them. They're certainly not going to roll over. And I mean, Bristol are a very credible side, but it's a tough place to go up there to get any points when you're flying high and full fit. And unfortunately, the number of people I've spoken to today already are looking at the injury list now, rather than being like, oh, so-and-so's playing well. Now they're like, oh, well, where was Genji? And Max is out, and now they're sitting there, and that's going on, and that's not working, and how long before AJ's back? And it's not where you want to be as a team that's just lost going up there. It's a really tough place to go. And like you say, Bath giving Sarries an absolute humping today.
Yeah,
is gonna spell trouble. So I think it's unfortunately going to be backs against the wall, and it could well be this time next week. We're looking at Bristol down in fourth.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if because I think Joe Owen got knocked out, so we might even be another second row down. I mean,
perhaps I'll give Pat a call.
I was going to say, if you're going to keep your phone on, you know, just for a one-off, it would just say you've got one job, Dave. You just got to get in there and just spoil. And
spoil, mess it up.
Yeah.
If we win like 6 points to 5 up at Saracens, sweet.
Well, look, Dave, really appreciate your time. That's given us good platform for discussion, and
I look forward to listening to you take it apart when the pod comes out.
We'll do our best. Well, have a great week and a happy New Year.
Yes, you too, mate. Nice to chat.
Okay, well, there's Dave for us. I mean, I tell you what, if Miles doesn't turn up to the next pod, he's going to find himself on the bench, isn't he?
Yeah. I don't think Big Dave suffers from man flu either, does he? So he could be a regular columnist now, couldn't he?
He slotted in perfectly, didn't he?
Yes.
He sounds like, he could do a job. But anyway,
and he's Bristolian as
well. We probably do need to balance it out.
We could be 2/3 Bristolian on the pod now.
I suppose if we did have Miles and me, and then you and Dave, it is a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the game. So, I mean, in some ways, I now feel a bit better having listened to what Dave said about the game on Friday, and it kind of did reinforce some of the things I was thinking. But obviously, when you're watching it live and you experience that, it's quite hard to put into to understand what went wrong. You just kind of feel pretty annoyed about it and disappointed and frustrated for all the reasons we said at the beginning. But what do you think? I mean, what sort of points did Dave make that you felt were really, really good?
Well, I thought there was a lot to dissect in that, actually, in that interview. I thought, well, Dave, he's like, as an intellectual as ever, wasn't he? He's really good at coming across and kind of talking in our terms, which I love.
Yeah, but he used the word humping several times, which I liked.
Yeah. Well, we all like a good humping, don't we?
Maybe that's where Miles is.
But no, I mean, it's generally, I think he's absolutely bang on everything that he said. I mean, I think pretty much what we were saying pre-pod. I guess the analogy for me would be it felt like a snowball that was rolling down the hill right from the off, and it gained momentum, and then for me it was against us all the time. And it felt like right from the kickoff we were trying to push this bloody great big snowball back up the hill, and every time we got so far up the thing would go over the top of us, and it would be tenfold. And it kind of felt like that. I don't think we need to talk about the line speed and what Cell did. We know that's what they do. The physicality, we knew that's what they were going to do. We said that weeks ago. I felt it was something that the little bits and pieces that went against us all magnified to a point where we literally were smothered. I think you said that word earlier. And it kind of felt, I'll be honest, it was one of those games I never ever felt we were going to win. And in fact, I was struggling to think where we would get a try from.
Yeah.
And we've never said that for, no. God knows how long.
Well, I mean, it is 8 years since we haven't scored in a league game.
Yeah.
But I was the same. I said to my missus at half time, I said, I genuinely don't think we're going to score, because I think we should have scored if we had scored before half time, it might have given us some impetus. We didn't. And I think I seem to remember that we got into their 22 quite late in the first half and then turned it over. And I mean, that was the difference between the Leicester game, where we went into their 22 6 times and scored 6 tries. And even when we did get a little bit of pressure on Friday, as Dave pointed out, that, you know, we let ourselves down with the basics, and you know, it's no blame to individuals, but we just dropped the ball. And of course that was probably partly to do with the fact they knew they had to do something to get back in the game. Yeah. And then within kind of 30 seconds of the second half, give away a penalty in front of the sticks, they get 3 points. And you just think, I genuinely thought, I'm not sure, they're playing so well, or they're playing their game plans so well, and we're chasing the game. Unless something kind of happens, an intercept or a charge down or something, I'm struggling to see where we're going to do. And I think, as you said before, like, rightly so, and we've all said this, we knew what they were going to bring. But I think what Sale did so well on Friday was that they were relentless for 80 minutes.
Absolutely.
Their defensive line was in line the whole time. Yeah. Like a rush defence, as we've seen it when we've actually picked off some other teams, if they're not quite aligned, you can actually make inroads.
That's
You know, if one rushes up too quick. And I think that, combined with not having AJ's sort of double pump, you know, I think Sam Worsley, I mean, fair play to the lad for stepping in, and it's going to be great education for him. But, you know, he's just a young lad, and like at the beginning of the season, he probably wouldn't have assumed he'd be playing the Christmas fixture against a fully loaded Sale team that are all targeting him as well. So those little things, and you know, but in other games, Sale haven't won away from home. It's their first win away from home, so they clearly just got everything right on the night. And their physicality was great. They were pushing everything, and you know, 100% fair play to them. And I think Dave was right. I just didn't feel like we were going to do anything. And I tell you what, I am quite pleased we didn't like revert back to a kind of box kicking game or anything like that. We still tried to be true. I
mean, there's going to be a lot of listeners who are going to say, well, why didn't we mix it up? And, you know, why didn't we maybe kick over the top and all that? And, you know, you've just, do you want to ring that bell? You've just alluded to the fact that, you know, we've got a young fly half in there, you know, and playing his second, third game. And, you know, it takes a while to actually have that confidence to be able to mix these things up and play that way. But I feel once Sale had got on the front foot, their players could see that game plan was working from the off. So we're up against it. And then that's when the pressure's on, we're doing silly things, we're making silly mistakes. And do you know what? I'm not going to blame any individual players, because it was one of those things where collectively, no matter what you're trying to do, when you're in the heat of battle, you know, it's just not that, it's not as easy as it looks sometimes. And I just think it's definitely going to be one of these games that we need to just write off, right? I think we just need to see the back of it. It will be tough at Saracens next week, but we'll get onto that in a bit. But I feel we need to sign this one off and go, look, we're still in the top 4. It's probably higher than any of us were expecting to be. We're playing a brilliant brand of rugby, because, you know, we've said Sale, they're quite anti-rugby, aren't they? Let's face it. You know, I mean, it's horses for courses, but their type of rugby isn't going to, you know, start getting hundreds of thousands of, you know, people watching, bums on seats and watching games. But we write this one off, and then I think we go again, and we just think, well, we're top 4, and the season so far has been a success. And I want to stay on a positive note with that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think just to go back to one point, which Dave also mentioned, he said maybe we could have put boot to ball a bit more. But again, we're not set up necessarily for that. So, I was just thinking about this, that, I think in a little chip over the top or actually more effectively might have been a big long boot into the corner. And of course we're not set up for that for our Ravovo and Yancey Bernard aren't kicking centres. They're not like Henry Slade who can get his boot through it. And actually you're relying on Sam Worsley to do the whole thing. And it was almost like you're trying to ask someone to do something they haven't probably planned. Now, a lot of fans have been saying, we didn't have a plan B. We've only got a plan A. But I think got to remember that we've got multiple plan A's and that don't necessarily involve kicking the ball. And even with a rush defence, those plans can beat it. But I just think it was down to Sale just being so relentlessly good. We just never got a sniff. And actually, maybe that's not what we do.
So had the performance of the season, didn't they? Without a doubt. And you could say actually after Bath yesterday.
Yeah.
But I feel like the point you were making there, if we did kick it, it would have been kicks in behind. And,
not aimless kicking.
Because if there was one criticism, I suppose the one chance we would have had would have been in broken play, because we've got players from broken play that can do anything, at any stage of a game. So there is that one criticism, maybe. But like you're saying, I think Worsley lost a bit of confidence when he kicked it straight out on the full. And I felt like I think we're asking a lot of a young lad playing only his second or third game at Fly Half. I just feel like, if anything, maybe some of the older boys could have stepped up, the experienced players, and just kind of directed it almost like this is what you need to be doing, I just feel we're putting a lot of pressure on a young 10 there. I
mean, and that's where we're not really qualified to sort of pass comment on what you're doing on the pitch, because it is, we can't hear what's going on. We don't know what's going on. I'm sure there was a lot of chat about what we're trying to do, but I guess a lot of the chat was we just got to keep doing what we do. And Pat has often said that, you keep doing what you do and it will come good, and you make sure you're in the right place. And it just didn't happen. So, I mean, the other thing I was going to point out, what you said, is that, realistically, despite that, as a one-off kind of difficult game at, the wrong time for that to happen, it's not actually put us in any real kind of huge problem in the league. We're still second in the league. The results, ironically, have gone quite well for us this weekend. Gloucester lost today. Quins and Leicester Tigers drew. Saracens got humped. Northampton humped Newcastle, but they're miles behind. So in some ways, and Exeter beat Gloucester, like we said. So great, well done Exeter. But that's not. So I think if we had looked at the table after half the season, because basically we've played everyone once, and we're second. With the highest number of bonus points,
5 points clear of third.
We would have bitten your arm off for that.
Absolutely, we would have.
Yeah, obviously we've got difficult games to come, but then if you look at it, okay, we've got the Saracens game. That's going to be tough. After that, we've got 2 European games. The reality is now with our squad and our injuries, we're not expecting much from them. Then we've got Falcons at home, which even with a small squad and an injury list, you'd like to think we're going to be competitive in that game. And then we've got the massive Six Nations break. So like we did last year, we've got all that time to get everybody back fit. And then we can go for it. And we're in a better position.
Absolutely. And
than we were last year.
We were in exactly the same boat, as you said. And the medical team performed wonders, didn't they? If you remember, we had players back they weren't expecting to
We're
be
not
back.
going to lose many internationals. I mean, ironically, I just said that already, haven't I? But I mean, Harry didn't have his best game for Bears, and Rafi Quirk had a great game. I mean, I feel terrible for Harry, but Quirk could have played himself into the Six Nations squad as the third scrum half there, which might mean we don't lose. We might only be losing Genji to England. And last year that was one of the big things, that we didn't have to integrate people back. and whereas some of the other teams did.
Yeah. But that was actually, just mentioning Genji there. I mean, again, that was a big loss before kickoff. Genji's been brilliant for us all season,
and he has been a gain line breaker.
Yes,
and he's brought other. I mean, you think about him and Kloska last week when they were saying it was the Guscott and Carling of the Bristol team. I mean, Genge has that ability to bring out more from other players. So I do actually think if he had been on the pitch, we may have as a first up runner, as somebody, leading sort of talismanic, he might have made a difference, but we'll never know. So
I mean, it's funny actually. What Dave mentioned the front three from his playing days about how they would kind of pass the ball out and stuff. Well, actually, I feel like our front three has been quite solid all season. Yeah, I'll be honest. Yeah, they're different players, admittedly. Where Genge is quite quite easy for Genge to sidestep someone. He's got not only he's got the pace, he's got the footwork as well. So it's almost like we're talking about comparing players from different eras. Only that was a few years ago, but the game plan is different now, isn't it? Even though it's still following the same ethos, but we have different personnel. So the players that like Genji now, they do it their way, and it was funny. I'm not disagreeing with Dave on that subject, but I do feel like the front three has been different. It was just this game. Yeah. I just feel we just got almost outfought, and it's one we just really need to write it off.
I think so. So I think I go back to my original question. I think I said in the intro is it a blip or is it something more fundamental? And I think clearly having injuries and stuff is not a good thing. But I think we're agreeing that it's a blip.
Yeah, absolutely.
We flush that blip.
Yeah.
And we move on. And we know we're going to have a tough game Saturday. And if we don't get anything out of Saturday, it's understandable. But I 100% know whoever goes up to Saracens on Saturday will be playing the way they want to play, and they'll be giving it their best shot, and they'll see what happens.
And that's what the team have given us all season. Yeah. They've given us 110% all season, and I feel actually we're all worried about the Sarries fight back and the comeback after what happened to them against Bath. Well, I still feel there's going to be a lot of our boys in there thinking, do you know what? Don't worry about them. Let's. This is our redemption now.
Well, I called it the redemption derby on Saturday because our boys are going to be disappointed about what happened. They've probably been talking all week. Hang on. Yeah. Talked about all week that it's a big festive game, that we can't do what we did last year against Exeter, that we've got to be positive, we've got to go out. And they did, but it just didn't work. And I'm sure a lot of them, want to make up. I know we're not blaming them, but they'll know they're not stupid. Absolutely. They'll know that it was just the worst time to come against Sale, and they just couldn't find an answer, and it wasn't for the lack of trying. So I mean, maybe they're some of these boys are thinking it's just, I'm going to treat the Saracens as a one-off. We're away from home. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an away game, and we love away games. We've got the record. 10 out of 10. If I was the boys, we're going to make this 11 now. Yeah. We've got to take this record away. Yeah. So it'll be interesting, and I'm actually going on Saturday, so I'll be able to report back. When I come back to tell you whether that steely-eyed determination to right the wrongs of Friday night is in the eyes of the boys, and I'm going to make sure I'm right down by pitch side to check whether their eyes are white.
Representing me. That's what I like to see.
That's it.
But do you know what? The one thing we do, I do feel at one point we're going to have a pod discussing our home form generally.
Yeah,
because
I think we need
just
to leave
feel
that.
Like that's definitely something. Towards the end of the season, we'll review it.
Because this whole chat of the fortress. Yeah, and we've used a few good historical analogies, and we thought that the fortress, they'd worked out how to pull the drawbridge up a few weeks ago, but unfortunately we've been. Well, I mean, we've been overrun. We've been. We weren't laid siege. A siege implies that you're actually like defending it. Like it was just overrun. So the fortress debate is there to be had. Yeah. But let's enjoy the away form while it stands. Actually, talking about the fortress, the other thing that Dave mentioned that was really interesting was his little take on how using Ashton Gate to educate educate the fans, particularly those games when you've got perhaps kind of extras come down or fair weather fans or students, and how he's always felt as though they don't use it enough, the screens that we have, which are massive. I thought it was a great point that he made, and I mean we don't need to rehash it too much, apart from the fact that the mentality for those games is to, as soon as there's some sort of break or whatever, is to put wave cam or Simba cam or something like that on, which has got its place. But actually, why? I mean, why not? Then he made a really good point. Is then it kind of dilutes the frustration that the fans may have, because obviously on Friday there was penalties that go against you. People are shouting offside. There's frustrations we can't see. People like at 28 rows up in the dolman are telling the linesman who's 1 yard away what's going on, and you're like, actually, these boys are right on it. They can see. We're not in line, but it's that frustration. Now, if there is some sort of clear explanation of why the ref has done this and why it hasn't, I think that educates, and maybe those people would come back.
Well,
because they'll say, you know what, that was quite interesting.
Yeah, it can only be good for the game, especially games like we've said, the game on Friday night. There would have been a lot of fans there who hadn't been to rugby before, right? And anything that kind of involves the fans and gets the fans interacting, if you can see something quite clearly on a screen and it's played through, and it kind of develops their knowledge of the game as well. And then you can, once you've got, like, we love the game, right? But a lot of times there could be a decision on the field. You'll be saying one thing, I'll be thinking another. Miles will say something else. And the three of us are like, well, we're not 100% certain what,
and then
right.
And then we'll have Rich behind us just shouting offside.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So, do you know what I mean? It's something that is so clear. And like David said, we got massive. We got the biggest screens in bloody Britain.
Yeah.
At the gate, So why don't we use them effectively and intellectually, and encourage the crowd to be part of it, and kind of see, once we get the decision, everyone knows what's going on. Then stick your Simba cam on and throw everyone up in the air. And
it was a bit like it was when Harry Randall got carded. That happened right over the other side from the dolman. I couldn't see what happened. He got carded. They got a penalty, and then they kicked it, and everyone was booing. And I was thinking, like, that's a bit harsh, because I mean, clearly the ref has made a decision. Now I looked at it on the highlights. I can see exactly what Harry did. He pulled Cowan Dickey back by his pants. Yeah. And it's like it was a professional foul. It was cynical. He did it because he knew, and he made it. He gambled wrong.
But to be fair, in that case, I think a lot of people just thought it was Cowan Dickey, and he's an arse.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, we nearly saw his arse because Harry virtually pulled his pants down. I mean, although metaphorically Sale pulled all of our pants down for most of the game, and then whipped our buttocks till we were red raw. That was one at least one response from Harry to literally pull their pants down.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's really interesting, and maybe something we can come back to another time. Well, look, we've got obviously Saracens away. We've discussed that a little bit. It's going to be tough. I'm going to be there, so look out for me on the telly. And we'll see what goes on. Before we go there, of course, we have got some listeners' contributions. Now, I haven't asked for any, but even in the depths of despair, some of our listeners, and have come through, and actually sometimes the darker poems are sometimes the better ones. So I'm glad I remembered, because I've got them written here. So here we go. We've got 4, a couple from regulars, and then we've got one brand new limerick, and then also I wanted to refer to one that we had last week, which has also resolved a puzzle that we were talking about. So here we go. First one again is I mean, they are the kind of bard, the family of bards. It's the Hambly brothers. I mean, they feed off each other. They were even they were even arguing with each other on our Twitter feed about whether it's been AI generated, or one of them was saying your wife wrote it, and it's like they were having. It's like I was just watching this. They were having an argument on our Twitter feed. But anyway, here goes. So Hammy Hambly came through, and he said, "Boys, I'm trying to find some positives, but it's really difficult." This was a standard acrostic. I won't force you to work it out unless you really do, and I'll tell you what it is at the end. So here we go. Sanderson outcoached Lamb, brackets again. Home form is still a worry. Aggressive rugby from Sale kept us quiet. Revovo tried to ignite some flames. Killed us with a big aggressive defence. AJ replacement needed. Team had moments when they clicked. Tenacious Sale wouldn't allow us any points. Amazing to see Jimmy Williams back. Couldn't quite make the Bears way work. Keen to move on from this one. Shark attack.
Yeah.
Genius. And then,
that is brilliant.
And then his brother, obviously a little bit annoyed that he didn't get there first, then replied to that one. And this is from Robin. This was more of a limerick. So Robin's decided to go down the limerick route, which is fantastic. There once was a team called Sale who made Bears attack look stale. AJ was missed. The fans were pissed, but we go to Sarries and can't fail. And actually, that was almost looking like an acrostic.
Yeah.
It was TWAT. And then I was thinking, if he had finished with S, we go to Sarries and fail, it would have been twats.
Which was, to be fair, that twat is still good enough, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry for younger listeners.
We've said a lot worse.
Yeah, we've said a lot worse. Well, Miles has.
No, I think because they've shown so much intelligence, those two, I think that could have been intentional.
It could have been. I really do. Yeah. And I mean, they're like the Bristol version of the Bronte sisters, aren't they? But they're Hambly brothers. They are. It's unbelievable.
They're the Thomas Chattertons of the modern era.
They do. We also had another acrostic from Brisley, good friend Brisley, and it's great to hear from, and I hope all's well with Brisley at this sort of difficult time. And he started his post, he went, and he said, very simple, very nice, clear acrostic, battered at home, lacklustre performance, incompetent referee, pointless, blip. Yeah. So he's kind of agreed with what we decided it was, just a blip. So,
I think good summary as well.
And he did actually say, not part of the acrostic. I did pop down the Bristol Beer Factory after the game, but couldn't get in because it was so busy. I still owe you lads a beer.
Well, I think really nice. We owe him a beer.
Yeah, we'll at some point catch up with Briz and say hello. And then we did actually have a new first-time limericker, which is one of our friends, Nessa Cat. She did it via Messenger, and it went like this. A loss at home against Sale, 22,000 or so home fans wail. The Bears not a point, had the ref, brackets, or the lads smoked a joint. Let's chalk that one up as a fail. It's a little bit risque, but I see where you're going. That's lovely, Nessa. That's a great start. Slightly risque, but a good entrance. And then, of course, I did mention that there was one that I didn't read out last week.
What was that one?
That was a limerick.
That was a limerick.
Yeah, not an acrostic. And then last week, I missed one from our friend Spencer Misen. Spencer Misen. And of course, that got us thinking about what's the relationship between Paul and Spencer.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we know now.
We now know because Spencer actually went to the Leicester game with his son Freddie.
Yes.
And his son Freddie's granddad is Paul. So Paul is the granddad, Spencer's the son, Freddie's the grandson.
And I got a feeling, unfortunately, they all know my mate John Silverthorne as well.
Do they?
So I think they, they're a nice little group.
Excitingly, Spencer sent us a photo with Harry Randall from the kebab shop.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah. And he said, so he listened to the pod and he said,
it was the kebab shop. The Nathan Hughes kebab shop.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, I think,
brilliant.
And he also, I missed it before the pod last week because I don't always look at Facebook Messenger. I always look at Twitter first. And he'd actually sent us an unbelievable poem that was kind of a play on Silent Night because it was obviously pre-Christmas. So here it goes. This is from Spencer. It's a week too late, but it might make us feel better and sort of reminisce about last week's game. So it goes: Silent night, holy night. Bristol Bears hit new heights. Round yon tiger, Ravovo flies, turning half chances into sublime tries. It's a 10, heavenly away wins on the spin. Yancey van Rensburg is our king. Genius.
No, that really is class.
And I thought, you know what?
That's biblical class.
It is class. And fair play to Spencer. So more of that.
And I think he needs to try and maybe speak to John and see if John can come up with something next time on the pod.
Big John Silverthorne, because he might be great with electrics, but he ain't coming up with no limericks, is he? Well, look, last thing about Saracens, only things I'm going to say is Joe Owen sounds like he's going to be out. James Dunn is fit. What else have we got at lock? We've got that Hodgson that we got from Scotland who came on, or we got Stevie Luatua.
Yeah.
So I suspect it might be James Dunn and Luatua locking down.
I think so.
Packing down. Gabs and Max, it's hard to know whether they're going to be fit. I mean, George Kloska came on, Jan Thomas came in. So we have got cover at tight head. So we've got Kloska and we've got Jan. So if Max is out, we can cope. Gabs being out.
I got a feeling Gabs might be okay.
Yeah.
I just have a feeling.
It looked muscular.
Yeah. I mean, Pat did say, didn't he, after post-match, he was saying that Gabs was kind of only just about got in on fitness, didn't he?
So hopefully he's under a lot of rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Hopefully Genji will be back if they sorted his back out, and that would be a big, we need him.
Massive.
Actually, going back to the locks, I'm not sure where Bats is in terms of fitness, because he must be close, because they said he was going to be out till Christmas, didn't they?
Yeah, but then we've heard nothing, have we? Normally we get a couple of...
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it is something that Pat's keeping his cards close to his chest.
I mean, I think
Big Jimmy
at 10. I do wonder whether Jimmy will start at 10.
I
and
think
maybe
he has to.
Put Sam on the bench.
I think the experience that Jimmy's got, and also he does give us something a different option that he can kick long.
Yeah.
So if we do want to keep the ball narrow.
Yeah. And then I mean, maybe Ogre will maybe get a start. And Thacker goes on the bench.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the other thing I was thinking is it's one of those games where it's time to call in Jake Heenan, isn't it? It's like this is a Jake Heenan game.
Yeah.
100%. I was walking past Borough. I thought I might pop in and just say, "God, give us the lowdown. I bet you're going to be in the team next week, aren't you?" So I'd imagine that Jake Heenan he'll be like, he'll have his phone ring about Wednesday. It's like, it's Pat. He'd go to his wife. It's Pat again. She goes, "Yeah, I knew it'd be him." All right, Jake. We got a tough assignment up away at Sarries. We need you. It's like, and he'll be like that in his superhero outfit.
Well, do you know what? Maybe they could do that as a sketch. Because did you see the Sarries sketch with Van Rensburg?
It was so good.
For anyone who's not seen it, it was based on the Love Actually scene.
Yeah.
Where what's his name? Lincoln, isn't it?
And he
gets the cards out, the placards, and Keira Knightley's on the doorstep. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, it is absolutely brilliant.
It is genius.
Loved it.
And it was made by I'll just warn you, it was made by the Sarries social media team.
Yeah.
So, but it is. I laughed my head off, and I like that. I like the way that Sarries have developed that a lot. It's a bit of humour. I always felt they were a very humorless club. But they have worked hard.
To be fair, I think our media studies team have really kind of
we've led the way,
inspired them.
Yeah. We have. Anyway, look, I think we're going to call it a day there. One thing I keep forgetting to say every week, and someone told me I should say, is if you watch this on if you listen to this on Apple Podcasts, which most over 50% of people do, give us a rating or give us a review, because apparently that can push us up the league table a little bit, and we might get more listeners in. Not that we haven't got enough already, but apparently. So if any of you Apple Podcasts are out there, give us a review. I'm not saying 5 stars, but I'd be disappointed if it was less than 4. But give us a rating and give us a review, and apparently that helps us out. But on that note, Lee, it's been a pleasure.
Yes.
Everybody, have a great New Year's Eve. Don't do anything stupid, and hopefully I'll see some of you at the StoneX on Saturday. I've got a little surprise. If it comes in time, I might be taking a little surprise with me. It was all a bit last minute, but I'll.
It's not Miles, is it?
It's not Miles. No, I'm not taking Miles with me. But anyway, stay safe. Have a good week, and
come on, you Bears.